When it comes to Miles Morales, you have to know that the way he got to the mainstream started all the way back in the late 2000s. When Spider-Man 3 came out, it was a huge box office success for Sony, and everybody was happy unless you were a Spider-Man fan. But if you were a 10-year-old kid Ken, you were over the moon seeing Venom fight Spider-Man on the screen. With everything going great at the box office, it seemed like Spider-Man 4 was a given. But out of nowhere, in January 2010, Sony decided to reboot the franchise with The Amazing Spider-Man, and they were searching for a new Spider-Man. And many people on the internet around the early 2010s thought that Donald Glover would be a great choice, which led to the hashtag Donald for Spider-Man. It really didn't go anywhere, and Andrew Garfield became Spider-Man in the end. But little did the world know that a black Spider-Man was actually in the works behind the scenes. In 2011, in an interview with the Latin rapper, then Marvel editor-in-chief Axel Alonso talked about the origins of Miles. He stated, "We formally discussed the concept of a black Spider-Man a few months before Obama became president, as a part of the discussion event of Ultimatum, which was blowing up and reconstructing the Ultimate Universe for a variety of reasons. It didn't work out at the time. The idea was shelved for a little while, but everything changed," Alonso explained. "We realized we were actually going to kill Peter Parker in the story that became the death of Spider-Man. We realized we had the opportunity to create a new Spider-Man, and Miles Morales was born." On August 3rd, 2011, Miles Morales made his comic book debut in Ultimate Fallout 4, written by Brian Michael Bendis and drawn by Sarah Pichelli. In the story, Miles really isn't named, but is mostly shown as a mystery Spider-Man. In the last Spider-Man story, Peter Parker had just passed away, so nobody really knows who he is until the very last page when he shows his full face. In some ways, this is more of a teaser to something greater for Miles in the future. But now that we got that out the way, let's hop into the history and lore of Miles Morales in the comic books. In this video, we're going to talk about the very first volume of Ultimate Spider-Man Miles Morales. Let's get started. We open up in Brooklyn, where we find Miles and his parents waiting to see if he made it into the Brooklyn Vision Academy, a prestigious school in the area where kids of gifted talents all go to. We meet his parents for the first time, Rio, who is a nurse in the city, and Jefferson Davis, whose occupation really isn't known prior to this story, but it slowly starts to get revealed throughout the series. Everyone's holding their breath to see if their child made it into this prestigious school, and luckily for Miles and his family, he actually makes it in and everyone celebrates. They're happy, and later on in the day, Miles goes off to his uncle's house where he wants to celebrate. This is when we meet Aaron Davis, the Ultimate Universe's version of the Prowler. Aaron is kind of like Miles's favorite uncle. He usually goes to him when he feels that his parents are pretty lame, and he seems to have a pretty good relationship with them. While he was there, he tells him about the institute that he got into and how things is going on with his family. During his stay, he is actually bitten by another radioactive spider. So, some context here. The night prior, Aaron had actually robbed Oscorp. In the Ultimate Universe, Oscorp is actually responsible for making the spiders that actually gave Peter Parker his powers. And it just so happened that Oscorp and gang were actually working on a brand new spider, but it was shelved due to Norman becoming the Green Goblin and ruining his own life. This didn't stop Aaron from digging into the ruins of Oscorp and stealing some money. He also found Spider 42, which happened to be the spider that would find its way in his bag. Back in the present day, this spider actually crawls out of Aaron's bag and crawls toward Miles' hand and bites him. Aaron returns back to the living room to find Miles knocked out on the floor. A few hours later, Miles gains consciousness again and sees his uncle trying to check in on him to see if he's okay. Miles tries to explain how he's feeling, but he is interrupted when his dad Jefferson comes in, barking at Aaron due to the fact that he still does not like him being over there and they still have beef over some past issues. This causes Miles to leave the apartment and run as fast as he can. While he's out in the streets of Brooklyn, he actually discovers his first power, turning invisible. Now, even more freaked out, Miles runs as fast as he can back to the Brooklyn Visions Academy to go and tell his friend Genki about his situation. On his way there, he bumps into some neighborhood bullies that press him, which allows him to try out his new power, Venom Blast, which literally zaps one of the bullies unconscious, making it to the dorm where we finally meet Genki. Genki is kind of like Miles' best friend. He's always there for thick and thin, and this is like where we start to meet his charm. Miles, flustered, he tries to give Genki the full spiel on what's going on, but he doesn't believe him, and so to prove it to him, he puts his hands on one of Genki's Lego sets, which then explodes due to the venom blast. They both don't know how to react to the situation. Their brainstorming is interrupted when Jefferson, Miles' dad, comes in to go and talk to him. He kind of gives him a whole spiel in Central Park about why him and his brother just don't get along and how actually back in the day they used to be criminals, and he doesn't want Miles to go down that path as well, so he tries to keep him away from Aaron due to the fact that he feels that he will be a bad influence on them. During their heart-to-heart, we actually see Iceman and Firestar flying through the city, which causes Jefferson to make a comment about how he hates superheroes and people with powers. Later on that night, Genki actually sends Miles an article about how Spider-Man became Spider-Man, and he's starting to put the pieces together that he got bit by a spider, which could possibly make him be Spider-Man as well. Miles tests this theory by climbing up the walls, and voila, he finds out he has spider powers. The next day, Genki and Miles are out and about, trying to come to terms with Miles' new Spider-Man powers. While they're discussing, they hear fire trucks in the distance that are going towards an apartment fire. Both witnessing this, Miles all of a sudden springs into action, saving citizens from the burning building. He is considered a hero, but then runs away out of pure adrenaline, which causes him to puke. Genki and Miles both go back to school, but later on that night, they're brought into the school gymnasium by their teacher to tell them that Spider-Man has been shot. This spins out of a storyline with the Ultimate Universe Civil War, in which the Punisher actually shoots Spider-Man while defending Captain America. And now the news actually reports that Spider-Man is also getting attacked by the Sinister Six in Queens. With this obligation to help, Miles springs into action and makes his way to Queens trying to help. When he gets there, he arrives a bit too late as he sees Green Goblin and Spider-Man fighting it out to the death. During a huge explosion, knocking out the Green Goblin, Peter Parker also dies from his injuries as well. In this moment, Miles witnesses the death of Spider-Man. The next day, Miles and Genki attend the funeral of Spider-Man, where they bump into Gwen Stacy and they ask her a question. They asked her, why did he do it? She tells them that the reason why he did it was because of the wise words his uncle had told him, with great power comes great responsibility, and also why he wore a mask was due to the fact that he wanted to protect the people that he knew and cared about. With this newfound knowledge, Miles has the urge to do good and carry on Spider-Man's legacy, so he spends the night sketching up ideas, but later on decides to wear a Spider-Man costume to fight crime. So this kind of leads into the Ultimate Fallout storyline, which happens where he fights the Kangaroo, and it's kind of Miles' first outing as Spider-Man. It doesn't really go that well, which causes the next day to gain the attention of the Ultimate Universe's version of Jessica Drew. Jessica Drew is obviously pissed off due to the fact that Miles is tarnishing Peter Parker's legacy so soon after he died. This makes the matter personal due to the fact that Jessica Drew is actually Peter Parker's sister in a weird way. In the Ultimate Universe, Jessica Drew is actually the clone of Peter Parker, spanning out of the clone saga within the Ultimate Universe, which an evil clone of Peter Parker had actually made 3 different clones of Peter Parker. It's weird, but we won't cover it. But all you really need to know is that Jessica Drew is actually the sister / clone of Peter Parker, and she is working with S.H.I.E.L.D. now as an Avenger. The two both fight, but in the end, Jessica Drew actually wins, taking Miles to the Triskelion, aka the S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, where he wakes up to find Nick Fury, Iron Man, and Jessica Drew standing over him. Nick Fury tells the rest of the Avengers to go, so him and Miles can have a one-on-one chat. But their chat is actually interrupted due to the fact that Electro, who is also part of the Sinister Six attack on Peter Parker, is stationed there, healing from his wounds from his battle, but wakes up, starts wreaking havoc on the Triskelion, which causes all the Avengers to go into battle, making the base go into lockdown. Nick Fury takes Miles with him to see what's going on, which leads them to a warehouse on the base where they find Jessica Drew flying through a window after fighting Electro. This causes Nick Fury and the rest of his men to fight Electro, but their bullets have no effect. This makes Miles spring into action by using his Venom Blast for the first time and invisibility powers to take out Electro, saving everyone on base. The next morning, Miles heads back to school telling Genki about all the crazy stuff that happened to him, and just so happens that Jessica Drew is also there with a briefcase given to Miles, and she thanks him for all the work that he did last night by stopping Electro, and kind of gives him this blood in and blood out speech about being a superhero. And within the briefcase, we finally get Miles's iconic black and red suit. So this ends the first volume of Miles Morales becoming Spider-Man. I actually enjoyed it, so we're actually going to be doing some more volumes of Miles Morales in the future, so stay tuned, and thanks.